We always knew there would be changes. It's the nature of Lions tours, and there have been several changes ahead of the second test. Some of them forced, some of them chosen. And in this video, I am going to go through each and every one of them and give you my thoughts on how those decisions have been made. Hello, amateurs. Welcome back to the channel. I'm going to be here with you throughout the Lions series and beyond. So hit subscribe down below to follow along. Now, talking in the press conference, Andy Farrell said, we're way better than what we've shown, and we've got another opportunity to show that this coming weekend. And you have to agree, you look at the collection of the players and then the output that they've provided on the pitch, and there's been sparks, there's been moments where you go, oh, that's it, that's what we're looking for. But again, I mentioned it right at the very top. It's the nature of Lions tours that it takes a while for these things to come together. And with injuries and with disruptions and all that kind of stuff, it just makes it harder and harder. Even back in 2013, that really strong Lions team didn't really click until the third test, and sort of later on in that third test as well, when they really ran away from the Wallabies. So could well be the same this time around. Going further, Andy Farrell then talked about back-to-back tour wins in the same country. So no Lions team has ever done that. So obviously 2013 was a test series win for the Lions. If we back it up now with this one in Australia again in 2025, that would be the first time any Lions team has managed to do that. So he's very excited about that opportunity. Okay, but let's get into the selections here. And there are some squad updates before we get into it, which will inform a lot of what I'm about to say below. Sione Tuipulotu not available due to a hamstring strain. It sounds like one of those that potentially, if it was the cup final and he was your best player, you'd play him. That's what I'm reading into it. But they're keeping him on ice for this week. Gary Ringrose also not available with concussion symptoms again. Again, that's a big story, and I'll be going into that further later in this video. Also not available, but still on tour. So there's hope that they'll both be recovered by the third test. And Mac Hansen and big Joe McCarthy, who, limped out of the first test after an impressive opening 40 minutes from the big man. Okay, let's get directly into it. And we will start, as always, with the forwards. And in the front row, we have got Furlong, Sheehan, and off the bench and into the starting lineup, Andrew Porter to start this one. I think there's a lot of how do we think the game's going to be panning out? How do we think it might go? And how are we going to win the game in this selection? And lots of these selections, of course, because you want balance throughout the team that starts, and you also want balance throughout the team that's going to finish the game. And I suspect the Lions have seen the likelihood that the Wallabies are going to be physically bigger and stronger at the start of this game, and the Lions are unlikely to run away with it like they did in the first half. So to have the carrying power of Genge to come on later in the game and the sort of more all-round game of Porter at the start might be the best option for this one. That's my read. Let me know in the comments if you agree. Itoje, captain, obviously continues in the second row. I think that was going to be undisputed, but joining him, Ollie Chessum, straight in to replace Joe McCarthy. I thought they might pick him at 6 and put Ty Burn in the second row. And I'm sure the minutiae around that detail was probably quite small. It might just have gone down to that back row played last week. Let's keep them in the same shirts just for familiarity of roles apart from anything else. But it could really have gone either way. I think Chessum fully deserves a start in a test match. He has grown throughout the tour and is a very good player. Into the back row, and yeah, same as last week. I mean, all three guys there played really well last week. I think they set the tone for the Lions across the board, and there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that they're the right players to come and do it again in the second test. Will they be able to bring that same intensity? Because there was a lot of intensity about them in that first test. I'm going to back them that they will be able to. Into the backs, and this is where it starts to get really interesting, because we have Gibson Park and Russell at halfbacks. Nothing particularly crazy about that. That is as expected. But all the excitement, I guess, all the stuff happened in the centres, where Bundy Aki is starting at 12, and selected alongside him was Gary Ringrose. Ringrose, however, got through Tuesday's game, the following day, the recovery session, but it was only after coming off the training pitch today, on Thursday, after the final training session, that he reported concussive symptoms to Andy Farrell and declared himself unavailable. So firstly, well done, Gary Ringrose, for being that honest, that responsible for yourself and for the team. And Andy Farrell mentioned that in the press conference as well, how selfless a decision it was for him to do that, because it's, like I said, it's the best for him and it's the best for the team as well. So massive applause for that in terms of looking after people and setting an example, I guess, for other people who might have head injury symptoms as well, to just sit yourself out. And if he can do it on the eve of what would have been his first Lions test, I just think that's a remarkable thing. So hat tip to you, Gary Ringrose. That means, though, that they're then in a very, well, it's an interesting situation, isn't it? Because Hugh Jones obviously was left out for this game originally, then comes back in. So, you know, emotionally, how's he going to feel about that? He'll probably feel, right, well, I've got a point to prove here. Like, I really felt like I probably should have kept that shirt, but I didn't. But I've got another chance. So let's go for it. I think probably before the series started, I think Aki and Ringrose were the favourites to be wearing those shirts. Obviously, Ringrose's injury stopped that being a possibility. So, yeah, I wonder if he will get fit for the third test, Gary Ringrose I'm talking about, and whether we will ever actually see Aki and Ringrose together in a Lions centre partnership, test partnership, I should say. However, what we've got is Aki and Jones. And throughout the opening games of the tour, we saw these centre combinations tried out many times. And this pair played 66 minutes together against the Reds. And I strongly believed at the time that it was hardening. It was so they've got time in the shirt together in case something exactly like this happened. And it has happened. So they have got a lot of it. Well, they've got some experience together, playing together and working those combinations. So hopefully that will stand them in good stead for the coming weekend. In the back three, and we have no changes. James Lowe, Tommy Freeman, and Hugo Keenan continue. They attracted some criticism for sure after their performances last week, and I don't think it was the best of any of them. I think the criticism was maybe a little bit harsh, certainly in some quarters, but I still think certainly Lowe and Freeman, I think, are the right guys. I would have selected Kinghorn myself, but I can understand why you would stick with Keenan. I don't think he was too far off his best either. Okay, on to the bench. And again, we got some more interesting things here. Kelleher and Stewart continue from the last game, with Genge coming in to add some real carrying impetus and momentum. You remember in the first test how the Wallabies bench really brought impetus and momentum into the game? Well, I think the Lions are probably looking, you know, how can we do that with our bench? How can we make sure we got some carriers going into the last quarter or the last half of the game? James Ryan on the bench, and I predicted this based mostly, honestly, on the fact that he was the second row that was replaced on Tuesday. And therefore, I'm looking at Andy Farrell and I'm thinking physicality. I'm thinking he wants somebody to come on and really smack people around in the later stages of the game. And Jack Morgan in the number 20 shirt. Delighted for Jack. I was a big proponent of him during the Six Nations. I was always rating his performances then and wanted him to tour. Did I think he could become a Test Lion? Honestly, probably not. But his performances on this tour have certainly warranted it. And I think over Ben Earl, what do you get? I mean, they're both really good all-round rugby players. Let's not sugarcoat that. They are both fantastic at most aspects of the game. But with Morgan, you probably get a bit more of a jackal threat, whereas Earl was a bit more of a carry threat, I would say. So I would say it's potentially horses for courses here, because I thought Earl did well last week, and I thought he did pretty well off the bench on Tuesday as well. So either way, delighted for Jack Morgan. And whilst talking about Jack, there was a really clumsy question by somebody in the press conference. Basically, the crux of it was, have you picked him just because he's Welsh? And I mean, Andy Fowler and Mario Itoje both bristled initially, but then dealt with it very politely and succinctly by basically just saying, no, it's not because of that. It's never been about that. Stupid question as far as I'm concerned. Okay, there's the backs replacements, and we've got Alex Mitchell continuing on the bench, under pressure though from Ben White for sure, but I think Mitchell did pretty well last week. And then Kinghorn, who can cover all of the back three and will do superbly well. And then I wonder how much the injury to Tuipulotu influenced this next decision, because Farrell is in there in the number 22 jersey covering 10 and 12, or whether it was always going to be the plan, whether both inside centres were fit or not. We'll never know, I guess, is the answer. We will never know. But excuse me, Owen Farrell is there, ready to make another test appearance for the Lions. And I've spoken at length about what he will bring to this Lions team, so I'm not going to do it again here. But I'm not surprised to see him there. I thought it was inevitable that he would come on and play a role in this test series at some point. And I think with the injury to Tuipulotu, I think it was almost inevitable. I think he had to be there in this selection to cover 12, because I don't think anybody else really does it, not to the same degree anyway. Okay, that's where we're at. That's the team that Andy Farrell selected. Got to say that he was straight into the press conference directly after the training session, so that Ringrose deselection or pullout was very fresh in the mind, and he didn't look rattled, I wouldn't say, but you could definitely see there was a lot going on for him at the moment. You know, lots of moving parts, trying to balance everything, trying to make sure that everybody's okay and, you know, everybody's positive going forward. But you could tell that it wasn't quite his super assured normal self, I would say. Different training week as well for the Lions this week, with the game on Tuesday. They rested Wednesday, trained today on Thursday. So just a slightly different thing. So lots of stuff going on. But I thought Itoje himself was really eloquent. Actually, some of his real eloquent best in the press conference, especially talking about Gary Ringrose, how he played against him at sort of under 20 level many years ago, and have obviously followed their careers together all the way through. And I thought some of the words he said about Gary were fantastic as well. We will be doing a big match preview tomorrow, so wait for my thoughts then about how I think the team's going to play, how I think the game's going to unfold. But let me know in the comments down below what you think about this selection. There's been plenty of comment online already about what's gone on, the good parts, the bad parts. I'd like to hear from you. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll join you there for a friendly conversation. Give this video a thumbs up while you're down there. If you don't mind, it helps other fans like you find it, and you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next, and don't forget